So, welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I started an eco conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, at Oxford Clay, I don't just make pottery, I also make resources such as books and courses and information for other potters who want to be more eco-conscious in their pottery practice but maybe don't know where to start or can't find out the information they need. So that's what this podcast is all about. It's about sharing everything I've learned along my eco-conscious pottery journey with you, and I can't wait to get started. So let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Tomlinson, and I'm excited about today's episode because we're going to be talking about how to find your unique creative style in pottery or your kind of signature pottery style. So I think when you're maybe like starting out in pottery, this can seem really overwhelming, and you just think like, I just want to make something. I don't really have a creative style. But do you know what? You do have a creative style. Every single individual person has their own creative style in pottery. Even when I think back to like the classes I went to, like when I was sort of very first starting out in pottery, when I was like learning when I was a child, we used to go to these like evening classes at the local community centre, like after school each week, and everyone would be so different in like what they would make. So I quite often make these kind of really like elaborate scenes. I was also really obsessed with like underwater creatures. So like I would make loads of fish. I would just be making fish, like sculptures of fish, underwater scenes with fish. One time I think I made like a squid, like a giant squid, but it was a small version, obviously. But every single person has their kind of, unique interests, unique ways of making pottery. Everyone's bodies are totally unique in the sense, in the way you make stuff, how you experience the clay. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that today in terms of like how to find your unique creative style in pottery. Okay, so right, okay. So where do you start? Because there are like, there are quite literally probably millions of different pottery techniques. There's certainly like thousands upon thousands of different pottery techniques. Where do you even start in terms of like what how would you even know like which one you're going to be like using as your unique creative style? Okay, so the first thing I would say is just like follow your curiosity. So if something interests you, you see something in a book or you see like a shape of something, so like looking at maybe like different ways people are making stuff, or maybe you're at a class and you see different glazes in buckets and you think, oh, that one's really nice, or like you see someone making something in one way, or at the evening class I went to, the kind of adult evening class, we used to have like different types of clay, and it'd be like, oh, I wonder what it's like kind of using this type of clay, or using a stoneware type of clay or an earthenware type of clay. So just really like following your kind of curiosity, I'd say, is like a really good place to start. What do you think that you might enjoy? What do you think you're interested in? And then this will be like an amazing starting point for like, your own creative style. Okay. So the second thing I've written down is that this is an unpopular opinion. It's unpopular with me anyway. Is that quantity? This idea that quantity produces quality. Okay, so I used to have this thing where I'd get really frustrated by because there used to be like a gap between my kind of, I guess, like technical expertise, I suppose you could be able to call it, in terms of like, practicing different techniques, and then like what I wanted to make in my mind's eye. So what I spent like, basically years doing, I still do now, to be honest, is like closing that gap between what I want to make and then what my skill level will like allow me to make. And so the only way through this, like awkward period of uncomfortableness where you want to make something but you can't quite get it right, or is like is through it. So the only way past this is through it. And through it is like this kind of uncomfortable experience of like things going wrong, or like, the frustration you feel and like you're trying to make something and it's just like not working the way you want it to, or you don't know how to get something that, maybe you've seen in a book or something and you're like, how do I get it like that? So it's only by doing things over and over again. I'm going to say practicing, even that's really annoying. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say the word of practicing. That's how you get to this point where your skills, you're closing this gap between what you like want to be making and then like what your skills allow you to be making. So there's this fantastic like kind of podcaster I listen to called Simone Soul, and she's got a couple of different podcasts, and she has this idea. So it's a totally a different genre. She has this but it is relevant. She has this idea of like, yeah, of quantity produces quality in the kind of marketing space. So she talks about she has this challenge called like the garbage post challenge, where basically you just post loads of things on social media, and it sort of gets you out of this idea that you could get something wrong. It gets you out of this idea of like, oh, I don't know if I don't want to try, I don't want to do that, I don't want to try that because like I might get it wrong. And so I think this idea is really, really helpful in pottery, because it's like just, trying things out. It's only by trying things out, things cracking when they're drying, things maybe, going wrong in the kiln, or like, things falling apart or something, that then that's how you get to the point where like you growing your skills all the time. That's your growth edge, basically. I've said this before on the podcast, but that is your growth edge, this kind of this awful things going wrong thing. Pottery. And it's only by kind of like doing that over and over again that like you get to the point where like you do have the kind of almost like muscle memory in your brain as well, and in your body, where you know that when you make this certain thing or you do something like a technique, if you think about throwing on the wheel or something, that's kind of almost like that's built into your body, that muscle memory of like how you actually make that pot, the speed you need to go at, the kind of the speed you need to go out for that particular type of clay, like how far you can push that clay, like how tall you can make that thing on the wheel. It's only by sort of pushing it to its very limits that you'll be able to kind of then like, yeah, to progress your skills, I guess. Progression, we're not talking about like a linear progression, obviously. Kind of, it's like all like the progression in pottery is all like up and down, and sometimes some weeks you can make something, some weeks then you go back and you're like, I could make it last week, why can't I make it this week? But it's only by like keeping on trying that then you you can develop your own unique style in pottery, because your creativity will then be able to really you'll be able to really make what you want to make. Yeah. Okay. Um so interrupting this episode to tell you about a totally free guide I've made just for you, on how to make your own pottery glaze recipe. So if you are a total beginner to glaze making and it's something you've wanted to maybe try, but you're not really sure where to start, this guide is specifically designed to take you through all the steps you need to know from start to finish, all the ingredients you need, all the equipment you need, and also how to fire your pottery glaze at the end. So, even if you're not new to glaze making and you just want a pottery glaze recipe that's very simple and specifically made with eco conscious ingredients, then this guide is also for you. So, you can get the guide in the show notes, there's a link, but also you can go on to the Oxford Clay website at www.oxfordclay.co.uk/resources for potters. Okay, let's go back to the episode. And then the next thing I was going to say is just that I think that your you in terms of your unique creative style, I'd say just be led by like what you enjoy. So like not only your curiosity, which is like, oh, your interest, like, growing and learning things. It's like, what do you actually enjoy? Like there's so no point like making stuff that you don't enjoy. If you're just like, oh, this is so laborious, like I've got to cut out all these little things and stick them all together, and like you're just not enjoying it or whatever. Like, you don't have to like make yourself make things that you don't enjoy making. Like there's been loads of things actually that I have started making in my pottery practice, and I've just been like, actually, I'm not really enjoying this part of it, or like I enjoy the making part of it, but then it comes to like say like glazing it, and I'm just like, oh, this is so annoying to glaze because I've got to wipe around this little bit so it doesn't like stick on the kiln shelf, and so it's kind of like trying to combine those two things, um, like your enjoyment of it, like at all parts of the process, the making and the kind of the finishing off, the glazing, the kind of, because pottery is quite a long process, isn't it? It's like it's got the making, it's got the drying, it's got the firing, it's got the kind of then the glazing stage, the kind of making sure it's all fine to go in the kiln. So all these stages, like you've got to enjoy, like, all of these stages as much as possible, as much as anyone can enjoy wiping glaze off something, the base of something with a sponge. Well, I do enjoy it, but not every I can see how not everyone would enjoy that part. But yeah, so it's like just following your enjoyment. So like in terms of my own pottery practice, I thought I'd just give you like an example of how this is kind of like working, in real time, the things I've spoken about. So okay, so when I first started making pottery, I first started making pottery on the wheel. Obviously, I couldn't make things on the wheel, so I just like practice, practice, practice. Things going wrong all the time. But the more that my skills grew, the more I was able to test out trying to make the shapes that I really liked. So I loved those shapes of like kind of ancient Chinese pottery where they would have like a very high shoulder, and they would have like little lids with kind of, those beautiful kind of beautiful vases, but also beautiful kind of urns, like those kind of things. So I would practice, 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 trying to make things with very high shoulders, which was often, often went wrong. And then I tried to practice like trying to make lids for things. Trying to make the lids fit, looked in books, how could I like make the lip of a lid, what how and just trying how, how do they make like the kind of little like knobs on the urn so they can lift the lid off, just trying all sorts of different ways of doing those things, trying to throw in like different parts on the wheel, seeing if I could do that, if I could join different parts together. So this was like a, years and years basically of just trying different ways out, and it was only years because I was doing it each week at an evening class. So I don't want you to think, oh my goodness, it's going to take me years. If you have like more practice in terms of like just in terms of the timings of your practicing, that's gonna take you way less time. But I was doing it each week at an evening class, for a couple of hours, so it did take me quite a long time to like just keep on practicing that. So I loved those shapes, and I was really drawn to those shapes. I just thought they were so beautiful. And so I thought, I want to make pottery like that. So that kind of really led me in terms of like trying to practice making those shapes. And then so a lot of that pottery, that ancient Chinese pottery, is glazed with ash glazes, and I got really really interested, especially recently in the last few years. I got so interested in like ash glazing, and like trying out like, researching and trying out like different types of ash glazing, and different plants, and I've written a couple of books on it. So if you're interested in ash glazing, I've got a couple of different books where I just try out loads of different like plants and leaves. There's a whole book on making ash glazes with leaves if you're interested in that. It's on the Oxford Clay website. You can download like an ebook version of that. And so that really led. So it was kind of like a combination of like inspiration from the outside, like, oh wow, this pottery, this is what was made, at this time of history, and how beautiful it is. It was really like, oh, so beautiful to look at. And then the combination of like the curiosity, like following, oh, how would you make an ash glaze, and reading about it, and then like practicing, like trying out different glazes, trying out different plants, trying out different techniques, some of which went wrong quite often. So you kind of like, combining those things. So combining a curiosity and the kind of what really lifted my heart, what really brought me joy when I actually made it. And when I would get the shape right, it would honestly, like, I could just feel my heart just lifted. It was just brilliant. Like being able to just look at a shape and just think, oh, that was the most beautiful shape I could make at that time. using my skills was just like, yeah, I could feel my heart just lifting. So yeah, and then now my pottery practice is really, I would say, it's less around kind of practicing my skills, although I still do a lot of that because things going wrong all the time. It's pottery, so after all, so things are always, always like practicing your skills. But I would say more now, I am sort of following my curiosity in terms of like different ways to color pottery. I've been doing a lot of that recently, creating metal oxides from copper and from iron, and kind of using that in my pottery. And so just really allowing like curiosity to lead me. And that is just what I find like the most fun. So that has really developed my creative style in pottery to, yeah, to my unique style, because I just follow my curiosity and I follow what brings me joy. So yeah, so I hope that's made sense, that episode. I feel like I've just been talking about curiosity and joy for maybe 10 minutes or something. But that's what I would say in terms of developing your own creative style in pottery. Just like do what you like, just do what you love to do what your body, your heart is telling you to do, doing what your brain like is interested in, combining all of those things will give you your absolute like magical creative, your own magical creative style, because it's coming from you. It's magic, it that creativity is just coming through you. So yeah, just let yourself do your thing in pottery and it will just be amazing. So it'll be your own creative style will just be as unique as you are, so yeah, it's been so lovely talking to you about this. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you on the next episode of the Octo Clay Pottery Podcast. Pottery Podcast. I didn't really say that bit at the end quite how I wanted to say it. Yeah, but yeah, so I will see you next time on the next episode. Okay, goodbye. Oh, yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you're interested to learn more about eco conscious pottery or making your pottery more eco conscious and sustainable, there's so much for you on the Oxford Clay website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. I can't wait to see you there.